when would you not use Navigate? Now, this gets a little confusing because there are some overlaps, right? So there are four other services that feel very similar to some of the things that you might issue an alert for. So Care Report, Safe Campus, 911, and Campus Safety. So I want to discuss those really quickly to try to differentiate when you would use those four services as opposed to using a Navigate academic alert, right? So 911 is probably the easiest, right? So let's get 911 out of the way, right? If your student is on fire, if there's a medical emergency or a criminal activity is ongoing, like a robbery or domestic violence, sexual assault, dangerous situations, please call 911. Do not issue an academic alert. 911 for any kind of pressing fire, medical emergency, or criminal activity. Campus safety is the next one. And this campus safety is for things like when you're locked out of your classroom, or you need your car jumped, your battery is dead, or you need a safety escort from your classroom to your car. Those are great times to call campus safety. Note, you're not calling them when someone's on fire or dying, right? You can call them after you call 911, but first call 911, okay? The next category is the safe campus calls. This is when you witness or experience threats of harm to a student. They're kind of threatening to hurt themselves, or they're threatening to hurt others. When you see students referring to school shootings or kind of aligning themselves with school shooters, and it causes concern for you, or generally inappropriate behavior, such as outbursts of anger, or they're crossing boundaries, like they're kind of stalking you, excessive calls or excessive office visits, or sexual assault or harassment, including stalking or relationship violence. Those are all great times to call Safe Campus. And just so you know, Safe Campus, they'll walk you through the best way to deal with the situations you're describing to them, but they're not located on the UW-Bothell campus. It's a call center somewhere, and they will help you out and connect you with the right resources. But just so you know, they're not the same thing as campus safety, despite the confusing name. Care reports. So care reports are when you're concerned for the student's well-being. You can also use a care report for bias or perceived bias, for academic, classroom, or behavioral misconduct, or if there's a victim of a sexual misconduct. Care reports are, as far as I'm concerned, primarily for cases where the student's academics may be at risk, but we're really kind of more worried about the student's well-being, right? So there might be financial or situational crisis in the student's life, or you might notice changes in their behavior or disruptive behavior in the classroom. Those might affect academics. We're calling the care team because it's at a level where you think that student just honestly needs some help, right? Navigate is where you are trying to get the advisors involved, right? So Navigate is when there's poor academic performance or great academic performance, and the steps you've taken based on those either poor or great academic performance, right? So for poorer performance, things like participation or low grades, or they're missing work, or personal challenges that are affecting their academics, right? So there's a little bit of crossover there. So if they're having financial or medical or family issues, you might issue a care report for them, but you might also want to loop the advisors in by issuing a Navigate academic alert that issue with their well-being is affecting their academics. And then steps you've taken, right? So did you connect them with tutoring? Did you reach out to an advisor? And academic alerts aren't always just for poor academics, right? So they could have great performance. They could be doing some really cool things in your class. They could have gotten a great scholarship. These are times to use notable achievement and the kudos, just so you're looping in the advisors and UW-Bothell in general about what awesome students you have, right? So as an aside on these great academic performance types, I want to kind of differentiate those two. So we have a kudos alert reason, and that's mainly for work that happens in your class, right? So they're doing a great job. They're going above and beyond. They're engaging in discussions. They're, earning the highest grade on a paper or an exam. They're really, you see them working hard, attending lots of office hours that week to master the material. So that might be a great time to say, you know what, I want to let advising know and have this go on the student's record if they're really putting the effort in, right? Notable achievement are mainly for things that happen outside your class, right? You might help them with it, like help them with the application for some grant or scholarship. But these are achievements that the student might want to tell the dean, or you might see them published on the UW-Bothell website, or they might be listed on a student's resume, right? So with the kudos, that's going to send a generic email to the student, right? It's going to say, hey, your professor said you're awesome, great. It's going to go on their file as well. For notable achievement, it's going to send a generic email to the advisor saying, hey, my student did a great job. For both those reasons, if you just submit the alert without any sort of comments or notes attached to it, that's all anyone will ever know. So make sure when you submit these kind of kudos or notable achievement alerts that you're actually typing in what the kudo is for or what the notable achievement is, right? What if you don't know, after all this, who you're supposed to call or contact or which form you're supposed to use? What if it's a gray area where it kind of overlaps and it's behavioral but also academic? Don't stress about it. Report it to anyone that feels appropriate to you, that makes sense to you. And they will redirect you to the appropriate person. Like, don't call 911 because your student failed your exam. But so pick the one that makes sense to you if there's overlaps, and they're totally trained to help you also submit somewhere else if you need to, okay?